Okay, good morning, folks. If you like to get started. Right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June Cairngorms National Park Authority Planning Committee meeting. For those members of the public joining today, either virtually or in person, I am Chris Beattie, the convener of the CMP Planning Committee. Today's meeting will also be streamed live on the @the-Cairngorms YouTube channel. Before we go any further with the meeting, I'm going to ask the clerk to the board to run a roll call.
Chris Beattie.
Good morning.
Jiva Blackett.
Good morning.
Sandy Bremner.
Good morning.
Pete Cosgrove.
Good morning.
Paul Gibb.
Here.
Hannah Grist.
Good morning.
Russell Jones.
Hello.
John Kirk.
Morning.
Bill Lobin.
Yeah.
Lauren McCallum.
Good morning.
Eleanor McIntosh.
Here.
Fiona McLean.
Morning.
Stephen McElwright.
Yeah, I'm here.
Duncan Miller.
Morning.
Anne Ross.
Good morning.
Derek Ross.
Yeah.
Mike Williamson.
Here.
Thank you. So members, to help move the business forward effectively, please keep your questions succinct and to the point and focus firmly on clarification of technical or planning issues. Once we've moved into the discussion phase of an application, it would be helpful if members could indicate at an appropriate point if you're minded to put forward any proposals regarding the officer's recommendations. Please raise your hands to indicate that you want to speak. During the meeting, please make sure that your microphones are muted unless you're speaking to ensure premium sound quality on the live stream. Should a member wish to pull together an amendment to a motion on any of today's items, a breakout room is available and the details are on your board memo. You will be joined there by Peter Ferguson, who's our legal advisor from Harper McLeod, and he is with us here in the room today. We have apologies from Kenny Deans and Jackie Brighton. And we've got online members, Jiva, Hannah, Fiona, Steve, and Anne. And two of the presentations this morning will be by Colin, who's also online today. So we'll move on to item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting from the 25th of April and matters arising not covered elsewhere. Can I ask if the committee is content with the accuracy of the minute from the meeting on the 25th of April? Are we good? Yeah, okay, that's fine. And any members wish to raise anything at all from those minutes? Nope, not seeing anything online either. Right, item number 3, matters arising. So we have an action point update. David, do you want to talk about that?
Thanks, Kevin. Well, it's just to clarify that we've brought back the recommended suite of conditions for the House of Brewer application, and that's on the agenda for consideration later on.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 4, declarations of interest. So if any members wish to declare an interest on any of the items on today's agenda, if you have an interest to declare, please be clear on the item number, the nature of the declaration, and whether you'll take part or leave. And I think we've got 2, so we've got Pete.
My declaration of interest is on item 6, which is the March burn. Myself and the company I work with, we've been doing ecological surveys in relation to that work, so it'll be inappropriate for us to comment, and I'll leave the meeting for that.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And John.
Item 8, I spoke for the client on that section 75 many years ago on the planning permission, so I think I'll step.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Oh yeah, I'll also move a motion to take the draft minutes of the confidential session on the 25th of April at the end of this public session. Are we content with that? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, so moving on to item number 5. This is an application for detailed plan permission 2025/0019/DT. This is alterations and extension to the centre, dining and catering hall, covered walkway, storage unit and erection of 4 number accommodation units and office block at the Abernethy Trust, Nethy Bridge, PH 25 3ED. Now this is going to be introduced by Colin online, and the officer recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Now, we've no speakers, so Colin, would you like to take us through this, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, that's fine, Colin.
Excellent. Okay, Emma, if we could go to the next slide, thank you. So the application site itself is the existing Abernethy Trust Outdoor Centre. This is at Nethy Bridge, or approximately 600 metres north of Nethy Bridge. Next slide, please, Emma. Currently, the site consists of a mix of woodland, kind of open recreation grassland or lawn, and a variety of buildings of different scales, styles, and functions. I think it's fair to say that the dominant building on the site is described as the main house, and this has been historically extended and altered at various stages over the last, well, quite a long time scale, but certainly over the last 20 years, there's been a number of extensions and alterations to it. Next slide, please, Emma. The proposal we're considering today consists of a number of different elements. There are some small scale alterations to the main house and a small scale extension to the main house. Small scale alterations consist of a variety of alterations to windows and existing doors, and there's a small scale extension to accommodate a new laundry room, I believe. The biggest single element of the proposal is a proposed new dining hall, which will be linked to this main house via a covered walkway. There will be also 4 new accommodation units to be built on the left-hand side of this plan. You can see them there above or below on this, the existing tennis court, and there's a small ancillary building associated with those 4 accommodation units. An office block, which is currently located within the footprint of the new dining hall, will also be relocated. You can see it down to the bottom right of that plan. And there are a number of planting and landscaping proposals associated with this also. Next slide, please, Emma. So to begin with the external alterations to the existing building, you can see here that they are relatively small scale. There's an enlargement of 2 existing opens in the south and east elevation. There's a small single-story extension to the west elevation. A small mono-pitched roof is being added to the north elevation, and some small-scale window alterations also. For the most part, the proposed materials match the existing materials, and the style matches the existing style here. Next slide, please, Emma. So moving on to the largest single element, the dining hall. In terms of its location, you can see the kind of courtyard area to the right of the main elevation of the house. That is where the footprint of the new dining hall is going to be located, and the link corridor between the two. Next slide, please, Emma. This probably gives you a bit of a better idea of how they're going to relate to each other. But the dining hall and the corridor itself are a mix of single and 2 stories. It's going to be constructed primarily of materials including timber framed windows, timber cladding, timber doors. It's going to have a light render and zinc standing seam roof, so kind of modern contemporary materials, I think it's fair to say. Next slide, please, Emma. This is just a slightly different elevations of that dining hall, but you can see the kind of 2-story element of it more kind of clearly here. Next slide, please, Emma. So this is the location that the office block is going to be relocated to. You can see here these existing kind of accommodation buildings, and the office block that is currently located within the footprint of the proposed dining hall will be located where you can see these tents to the right-hand side. It's on the lawn that's kind of directly facing the main house. If you could go to the next slide, please, Emma. And this is the office block itself. So essentially it's just being lifted off its current kind of concrete platform and relocated over beside the accommodation blocks, which you can see just slightly in the background there. Next slide, please, Emma. In terms of the 4 new accommodation blocks and the ancillary kind of service building, it's going to be located on an area of recreational lawn, which sits above an existing tennis court, which is kind of just over the brow of that hill that you can see there, kind of drops down into the tennis court. at the minute, that lawn is used for a variety of kind of recreational and activity purposes. Whenever I conducted my site visit, they were setting it up for archery at the time. So it's things like that. It's a bit of a flexible space at the minute, but essentially it's just laid out to lawn. Next slide, please, Emma. So these are the accommodation blocks, and on the right-hand side, there's the small kind of ancillary kind of service building that's being proposed. They're all single-story, and they all have standard seam metal roofs. It's kind of a dark timber cladding, sorry, that's being proposed, and again, timber frame doors and windows. Next slide, please, Emma. The site as it is kind of pretty well. It's got a good kind of woodland, mature tree woodland kind of covering and patches of it. This is proposed. There are some proposed kind of landscape and woodland kind of supplement this. One silver birch tree will be lost as a result of the accommodation blocks on the left-hand side there. But the proposal includes the planting of 9 Scots pine, 6 rowan, 14 silver birch, and 7 aspen. There's also an area of lawn or wildflower meadow seed planting that's kind of proposed. You can see it around the fringe of the proposed dining hall there. And in addition to that, they're going to include 5 new bat boxes, 4 new bird boxes on the existing mature trees. And then there's also some dead wood stumpery that's being located. You can see that kind of as the yellow elements in and around the tennis court and the new accommodation box that's being proposed. Next slide, please, Emma. So in terms of the material considerations for this application, in principle, the existing site is in use, and the principle of this use is well established. The proposal is to expand the existing facilities and the accommodation, and this is supported in principle by the development plan, both NPF4 and also the LDP, subject to detailed consideration. So the design, the dining hall, the design and materials are probably of a kind of a contemporary nature and contrast those of the more traditional architectural style of the main house. There is some continuity there through the use of a consistent render on the dining hall and the existing house, but the scale and massing of the proposed dining hall is such that it's going to remain subservient to the main house. So although there's a contrast in architectural styles in terms of how it relates to the main house, it's not competing with it. And I don't think in any way, shape or form, it remains subservient in its style and its scale, and it's of its time. Essentially, it's a modern, and I would say kind of high class modern design, and the materials that are being proposed are consistent with that. The extensions to the main house and the alterations to the main house, I think it's fair to say that the scale and style of these will have minimal effect on the character and appearance of the main house, and the materials that are being proposed are consistent with those of the main house. So I don't think it's going to have any real material effect on that character or appearance of the main house. The relocation of the office block, again, I think will have minimal impact. It's a building that is existing on site, and the location that it's being moved to is not going to impact in any way, shape or form on the use of the site or circulation, either on foot or on vehicles around the site. And architecturally and in terms of its materials, it's consistent with the accommodation blocks that it's being located beside. So I don't think there's much kind of note that's going to result from that relocation. The new accommodation blocks that are being proposed, they're of a pretty modest design and scale, and again the materials are in keeping with those of the wider site, the timber and the metal clad roof. They're quite functional in appearance, but they're also quite minimalistic and attractive in that sense, and again entirely appropriate, I think, for their setting. In terms of the design, I've recommended a condition where I think we would like to see a palette of material samples before construction begins, just so we can get a real detailed understanding of what the materials for each element of the design are going to be in practice, and finalized materials of that. But on the whole, I think in design terms, the proposals are appropriate in terms of scale and massing and the materials proposed, and also I think the dining hall relates well to the existing house. In terms of landscape and environment, well, the additional planting increases the amount of trees on site quite considerably. The addition of the bird boxes and the deadwood bat in the bird boxes and the deadwood stubbery further kind of enhances the potential for biodiversity on site, as does the wildflower meadow and seed mix that's being proposed. So I think when we look at it in the round and on the whole, I think it's fair to say the biodiversity will be enhanced on site and that the tree coverage will be enhanced on sites. And as such, the kind of landscaping proposals that are being proposed, I would support this. The final element in terms of flooding and surface water, well, Highland Council flood team had a detailed look at this, and they're content that the area is in the proposal site is in an area of low flood risk. However, we are recommending a condition on their recommendation that a finalised drainage impact assessment is submitted and considered in detail before development starts on site. So to conclude, the proposal, I believe, is of a high quality design. The scale and the materials are complementary to the existing, and on the whole, it will boost the existing offering on site of accommodation and recreation. The proposed landscaping will enhance the on-site biodiversity, and as such, the proposal is in accordance with the development plan, subject to the recommended conditions. And we're recommending approval on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Members, do you have any questions for Colin? I'm not seeing any in the room, and I'm not seeing any online. Okay, so I'll open it up to discussion phase. Do members wish to raise anything? Pete.
It's just a minor question, and it was, is the wildflower seed mix, is it going to be local provenance? I've just worked on several sites where seed mixes end up being dominated by English seed mixes with species that are inappropriate for the area. So it was just to say, could we make sure that it's local provenance seed, and then that will be fine?
I could certainly have that conversation with the applicant's agent. They've been very open and very kind of cooperative in the conversations I've been having with them so far, so I'm happy to raise that with them.
Yeah, there are seed companies in Scotland that specialise in producing seed mixes for this sort of area. So just that's really what we should be using and nothing else.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Bill.
Well, this application is basically quite far from other properties. I'm surprised that we don't include an advisory about construction, timing and noise.
Colin, would you like to come back on that?
You're surprised that we wouldn't include it whenever it's quite far from properties or whenever it's close to properties? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I just think it should be a blanket thing that we do on every single planning application, that there should be an advisory regarding the timing of construction work and noise generation.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think it's fair to say that the construction industry is regulated quite tightly on those aspects. And I suppose this is Highland Council, isn't it? Their environmental health team would be the kind of the element with the statutory powers in that respect.
Yeah,
we can do that though. We're comfortable with putting that on as an advice.
Yeah, it's a simple thing to do. Doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Eleanor?
I just wondered why we called this one in. How did it meet the criteria, as we're going on to discuss that later on?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to go back to the detailed justification. Can't remember exactly what we said at the time, but we have called in previous applications on this site and determined them, and that is one of the factors that we would typically look at. Some cases are pretty marginal, and this was probably one of those, in fairness. But given that context of having called in applications previously, that I think was the main tipping factor on this one.
All right, thank you. John?
Could I just say something? I mean, Abernethy Outdoor Centre is a major employer in the village and contributes a lot to the village. So it's, and you know, at times of working, they're pretty strict on the hours, and there'll be no Sunday working and all the rest of it. So they are pretty strict and all that sort of thing.
Thank you, John. Right, any more questions? Nothing, or anything for the discussion? Nothing online? Nothing more in the room. So are committee members content to take forward the officer's recommendation and approve the application? Okay, lots of nods, that's good. Okay, so application for detailed plan permission 2025/0019 DET, alterations and extension to the centre dining catering hall, covered walkway, storage unit and 4 accommodation units at Abernethy Trust. It's been approved. Right, thank you very much. We'll just take a couple of seconds for Pete to leave the room. Thank you, Pete. Okay, so this is an application for detailed planning permission 2025/0053/DET, and this is the proposed restoration of the March Burn, including realignment of the river channel, removal of lower section of river embankments, infilling and regrading of river channel and river embankment. Installation of large wood green bank protection and large wood structures, the formation of an inset plan and wetland scrapes and associated works at the Marchburn site and construction area, Glenclover. And I am a wee bit remiss because I should have had a statement of transparency at the beginning. Sorry, everyone, forgot that. This has been looked at by Angus Council, but I've had no action on that at all. I was delegated, so it's not come to committee or anything like that. So I will remain in the room for this. Again, it's going to be introduced by Colin Bryans, and the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. So with no speakers. So Colin, would you like to take us through this application, please?
Thank you very much. Okay, so this application site consists of the March Burn, which is a tributary to the South Esk River. It's located in Glenclover in the Angus Glens. Next slide, please, Emma. The part of the burn in question is located within agricultural fields, and it runs from the B99955 road to its confluence with the South Esk. In its current form, it pretty much takes a straight line from that road, and you can see in the red there, that's the bridge kind of crossing, and it's almost, I'd say, at that point, it's a small, I don't know what the term would be, weir or small man-made waterfall, kind of steps down underneath the road and drops down into that kind of straight channel running down to the river. Next slide, please, Emma. So there's a number of different elements to this proposal, and I'll run you through them at a high level. But if any of it, if you want clarification in any of it, just feel free to stop me. So the realignment of the channel is actually going to utilize the relic channel from the existing, from the previous original alignment of the burn. And when you're on site, you can actually see the indentation of the course that the burn used to take, and what's being proposed that essentially that's reinstated. The infilling of the existing channel will then be with the cut material that's going to be generated through the excavation of the new channel and the scrapes. There will be installation of large deadwood structures within the new channel, which will drive future channel change and dynamism. There will be removal of the existing embankments and a reprofiling of a single retained embankment, which is kind of the red area you can see hatched up there on the left-hand side. There will be large boulders placed within the new channel, which will be used for gradient control. So I mentioned at the beginning that, you know, it's almost like a waterfall as exists. Well, boulders are going to be used so that that gradient is more controlled and more natural in its form. The existing channel, the material in the existing channel will be retained and will be used in the reinstatement of the new channel. So the channel, the burn floor, as it were, and the gravel within that will then be relocated to the new channel. There'll be an installation of large wood structures within the green bank protection area. So you can see up there at the top section of the burn, those kind of green kind of lines. Those are large wood structures that will be used to shore up the bank and protect these banks against erosion and mitigate any risk of the burn trying to return to the course that it's in now. In addition to this, there will be some localized excavation to create floodplain scrapes or temporary kind of wetlands, and these have been positioned to make the most of the existing topography. So you can see on the right-hand side there, these will be kind of low-lying areas which will be wetter by nature and will fluctuate in how wet they are essentially throughout the year and throughout conditions as they change. Next slide, please, Emma. So I put this one in just to give you an idea of these kind of large wood structures and how they're going to be used in a variety of different ways. Certainly something that was new to me with this scheme. Top left-hand kind of quadrant there, you can see these are the kind of large wood structures that are going to be anchored within the burn channel itself. And what that's going to do is disrupt the flow of the water and create a variety of aquatic environments within the burn channel of, faster flowing sections, deeper sections, slower flowing sections, that type of thing. They also provide habitats in and of themselves for invertebrates and stuff like that. They will also be used, large wood structures will also be used, you can see kind of in the bottom two squares there, in the bottom two quarters, will be used as a way to kind of shore up those new embankments or the new banks of the burn, as it were. So, and again, they will still fulfill the function of providing new habitats and disrupting the water flow and creating a more kind of dynamic burn environment. Next slide, please, Emma. So in terms of the material considerations for this one, in principle, delivering the reinstatement of natural river form and processes with a drive to increase biodiversity and improve climate change resilience these are the driving kind of forces behind this proposal, and every aspect of that is supported in principle by NPF4 in the development plan. Excuse me. So the proposal is supported in principle. Moving on to detailed consideration. In terms of design and landscape, the development is consistent with the 6 qualities of successful places as identified by NPF4, and in particular, it contributes to the quality of sustainability by ensuring there's climate change resilience built into this, because it's being designed to flood in a more natural way as opposed and reduce the rate of flow through the burn. And also it's integrating nature positive biodiversity solutions. The proposal also supports attractive natural spaces, and it's consistent with the pleasant quality that's identified within those 6 qualities of successful places. So in terms of its design and its landscape, it's again consistent with NPF4 and also the LDP. In terms of environmental impacts and biodiversity, the March Burn forms part of the River South Esk Special Area of Conservation, and the qualifying features at play here are freshwater pearl mussels and Atlantic salmon. The proposal will restore, the proposed restoration development will benefit, in channel habitat diversity in the channel floodplain connectivity. And as such, it may contribute to increased distribution and availability of habitats for both freshwater pearl mussels and Atlantic salmon. The biodiversity benefits of the proposal do apply beyond those 2 qualifying features and increase quantity and quality of habitat for a range of flora and fauna. And HRA, Habitat Regulation Assessment, appropriate assessment, were undertaken for this proposal, and this has been reviewed by NatureScot, and the conclusions therein have been agreed with NatureScot. Some detrimental impacts on the designated site features and existing flora and fauna have been identified and are expected during the construction works. The applicant has submitted mitigation measures, proposed mitigation measures for these, and it is felt that these mitigation measures are sufficient. However, we have recommended a condition requiring the submission and the agreement of a detailed construction environmental management plan, which will include full details of proposed mitigation measures and will also include details of an ecological clerk of works to be employed on site. But the conclusion is that the Potential detrimental impacts that could be experienced during the construction period can be mitigated during that time, and after which once the proposal is established, the environmental and biodiversity impacts will be substantially positive in nature. So in that respect, the proposal complies with the development plan, NPF4 and LDP. In terms of flooding and surface water, SEPA raised no objections to the proposal, noting that the scheme will not increase flood risk to any receptors and that it may provide some flood storage and potentially reduce flood volumes downstream. So all positive in that respect. So to conclude, the proposal fully aligns with the development plan in terms of NPF4 and the LDP, and subject to the recommended conditions and the mitigations to be fully detailed within the construction environmental management plan. Recommendation is for approval, and this one subject to conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Do we have any questions for Colin? Nothing in the room. Nothing on. Oh, sorry, Russell.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, why was the river straightened in the first place historically? Was it for farmland to stop the farmland flooding?
I don't know for sure, but I would assume that would be the case. I think it's quite typical of burns of this nature crossing farmland.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not used for farmland anymore.
I think it might be grazed. I think it might be grazed still.
Okay, thank you.
But again, can't be 100% in that one.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Colin. Anyone else in the room? John.
Well, it would have been nice to see some pictures of the area. You know.
Apologies. Yeah.
Yeah. There are pictures on the portal of the original, about the current thing, and the meandering sort of what was left over for when they moved it. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen those up as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Nothing online, nothing in the room. Okay, we'll move to discussion phase. Does anyone have a point to make? John, again.
The shifting of the gravel, I mean, is there a risk here that the gravel could shift? I mean, rivers have a great way of making their own way back. I know it's gone back to the original. I know in our own farm, the river, the old river bed is there, but it keeps trying to go back, so is there a risk of this, or?
Colin?
I wouldn't call it a risk. I think it's designed to be dynamic, and that we are anticipating that the burn will change of its own course. There was I can't remember the name of it now, but when we were out in site, we had a look at another burn that had been restored further down, and it shifted quite a lot over the last few years. So I think that's fully anticipated, and that is actually one of the intended aims, is that the burn becomes more dynamic in nature, which is entirely natural.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Nope, nothing online. Okay, so the recommendation is to approve subject to the conditions. Are committee members content to take forward the officer's recommendation? Yep, so seeing heads nodding. Okay, so that means the application for detailed planning permission 2025/0053, the proposed restoration of March Burn, including the realignment of the river channel. I won't say all the rest, but at March Burn site, Glen Clover has been approved. Okay, thank you very much. Can we get Pete back in the room? Oh, that's great. So moving on to item 7, application for detailed planning permission 2023/0406/DET, the erection of warehouse building, class 6, formation of access track, parking area and associated works, with proposed planning conditions at land 130 metres southeast of House of Brewer, Pittergowan, Blair Athol, Pitlochry. This is going to be introduced by Katie. And the recommendation is to approve the conditions and refer the application to the Scottish Ministers. Katie, would you like to take us through this?
Okay, so as you're all aware, this application relates to the proposed warehouse to the warehouse building, access road, parking and associated works to the east of the House of Brewer, which was brought to you at the last committee meeting in April. So the application had been recommended for refusal due to the development site being at risk of flooding. However, the committee took the view that whilst the application does not comply fully with relevant provisions of NPF 4 Policy 22, it can, when taking account of the proposed mitigation measures, and overall the application complies with the development plan as a whole. So the Planning Committee agreed to an amendment to approve the application in principle, subject to a full suite of conditions coming forward at the next meeting, which is this one. So today I'm asking the committee to approve the conditions set out in the committee report paper and authorise the application to be referred to Scottish Ministers. So just a quick update in terms of consultations. Following the committee meeting in April, we consulted SEPA for some input as to whether they had conditions that they would like to be included. They did respond, but they stated that we do not consider their objection in principle could be overcome by matters being addressed by planning condition, and as such did not suggest any specific conditions. They did advise, however, that the most appropriate option was to stilt the development, as has been recommended in the flood risk assessment, which also forms part of the proposals. And they also wanted to ensure that there's a dry access and egress from the building. We also consulted Perth Kinross's flood team, and they came back with 3 conditions to be included, which have been included, and I'll just go through the conditions very briefly. So condition 1 in respect of the permission expiring within 3 years, that's a standard condition as we've all seen before. So that would always be included. The second condition, which was put forward by Perth and Kinross's flood team, but also meets the advice that SEPA gave us as well, and that's to ensure that the development is constructed to the specifications recommended in the flood risk assessment, and as per the proposed design, which includes elevating the building above the flood level with a minimum underside of building level of 147.7 metres above ordnance datum, and this was all obviously covered in the previous meeting, plus a minimum freeboard of 300 millimetres, as well as ensuring that there's a dry access and egress from the building building to out with the flood risk area. Condition number 3 is the requirement for a flood action plan, which should be prepared detailing the access and egress arrangements during a flooding event. That was also again put forward by Perth and Kinross. And the third condition also put forward by Perth and Kinross was for the detailed sustainable drainage system, details of the SUDs. Condition number 5 is the requirement for a construction environmental management plan. So this covers covering site preparation, SUDs, pre-commencement checks, and a programme of works. Condition 6 is for pollution prevention plan, and this is to ensure the risk of pollution from sediment and other pollutants are managed that if they're released during construction. Conditions 7 to 9 were put forward by Transport Scotland, and they requiring details of the proposed access alignment and construction specification of the access road, drainage of the access road, and the proposed signage, non-motorised user arrangements, any fencing, gates associated with the proposed access. Condition 10 was required by Perth and Kinross roads team, which is for the provision of cycle parking, that again all fairly standard. Condition 11 is for a biodiversity enhancement plan, so this would for mitigating the loss of some of the grassland, and all measures to enhance biodiversity on the site, details of all of those measures. Condition 12 is to provide an updated landscaping plan, just comprising a scheme of hard and soft landscaping works for the proposal. Condition 13 is to ensure that the proposal is completed in accordance with the landscaping plan. And condition 14 is for an updated tree survey, tree protection plan, and tree impact assessment and ensuring that the development is completed in accordance with those plans. The ones that were provided with the original application, obviously, were coming up for 2 years since it was submitted. So this provides a more updated picture in terms of trees on the site for the proposal. The conditions have been run. We've discussed the conditions with the applicant, and they are happy with all of those. So as you're aware, if the committee are minded to approve the conditions today, we're not able to approve the application due to SEPA's outstanding objection, but we will be referring it to Scottish ministers who may call it in, and we will keep you all updated on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Do we have any questions of clarity for Katie? Eleanor?
Sorry, not clarity. I'll wait.
Oh, okay, right. Paul?
Yeah, just a quick one on the sequencing. So in clarification 2 and 4, so a new design plan will be submitted, and in that, in condition 4, I presume the SUDs will be there. Does the applicant send those to the park first? Then a full package is put together which represents the latest application, and then that's sent on to the Scottish Government?
So no, this Scottish Government will assess the application with these conditions, and should they be minded either to approve it or not call it in, it would be determined, and then once the applicant the applicant will then be required to undertake, discharge the conditions that are required beforehand, and they would then submit the information to us, and we would then consult relevant bodies, whether it's Transport Scotland or Perth and Kinross, on that. Okay.
Any other questions? Nothing in the room, nothing online. Okay, we'll move to the discussion phase. Eleanor, you had a point.
Yeah, no, it was just to say that given that this will go to ministers, or could go to ministers, that we can't actually approve it. I think the work that you've done since the last planning committee makes it a much stronger, more robust application, Katie, and I congratulate you and the team around you for managing to come up with the conditions, short shift, and get it back here today. And I'm happy with conditions. Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? So, Hannah, did you have a point?
No, sorry, I was just agreeing with Alan's point. I think it's really good that we're putting together a strong application. So I was just saying thank you as well.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Anne?
Yes, I would just agree with Eleanor's point, I think, and the speed with which it's come back to committee also, and it's not just the speed, but it's the thoroughness of what has been put before us today. I would commend the planning department for this. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers? No. Well, I'd like to echo Eleanor and Anne on that. I think the work you've done on this in such a short time has been absolutely fantastic. Well done. And I think we've given it the best chance that it can have. Okay, thank you. Right, so with that in mind, folks, are we minded to approve the recommendation and approve the conditions and refer the application to Scottish ministers? We agreed? We are agreed. Great. Okay, thank you. So we'll do that. David, did you want to say anything at the end there?
Yeah, I guess it was just a point of clarification, because it's maybe quite timely as well. That we've literally just this week received, as the Chief Planning Officer's letter has been published this week, which is around the implementation of NPF4 Policy 22, and picked up on, a lot of these exact issues. And I thought it'd be worth mentioning just to the committee, because there's a section in there which relates to the notification process to Scottish ministers. And one of the things that it says in there is that it's important that planning authorities demonstrate that they understand and accept the flood risk context of the decisions they're making, as that will be an important factor in Scottish ministers' consideration whether or not to actually call in an application or to clear it back to us to determine and issue that consent. I think the minute demonstrates that that's what's happened. I think, the conditions that have come back demonstrate that we've had regard to that. So we'll be making, in our sort of cover and response, trying to make that position clear as well. Obviously, ministers may still decide to call it in, They normally have a 28-day period within which to make that decision. So we should know relatively soon, and we will keep you up to date on that. But yeah, we'll put that case forward as best we can.
Thank you very much, David. Right, so moving on to item 8, John. So John's going to step out just now. And this is the application for detailed planning permission 2025/0075/DET, and this is an application under Section 75 to request the discharge of a planning obligation associated with planning permission 07/414/CP at lots 5 and 7, Dermuley, Boat of Garten, and Emma is going to introduce this. Emma, take it away.
Thanks, Convener. Yes, the application is to seek the discharge of the Section 75 agreement that relates to a planning permission that was granted for a dwelling house on the application site. There we go. The site is a former croft and it lies on the north side of the A95 at Drumuley. The application covers 2 areas of land, which are known as Lot 5 and Lot 7. This plan shows how the application is divided. Lot 5 is the larger site to the left-hand side of the slide, and that shows the house that was granted planning permission some few years ago, which is now built and occupied. And then to the narrower strip of land to the left is known as Lot 7. So notwithstanding that the legal agreement relates to the construction of the dwelling house on Lot 5, the restrictions imposed by the legal agreement cover the site as a whole, which comprises Lot 5 and Lot 7. At the time of entering into this Section 75 agreement, both lots were registered as a croft, and the legal agreement required that the house on Lot 5 was not to be sold off separately from the wider site, and it was to be occupied only by someone engaged in crofting work on the site and any of their dependents. So what's happened is the bottom half of Lot 7, which is shown in this slide here, has now been decrofted. The decrofting, however, is subject to the land being used as a dwelling house. Now, planning permission has been granted for a dwelling house on this part of Lot 7, and the applicant now wishes to sell the land separately from the wider site. However, the Section 75 restricts them from doing so. So just generally speaking, the main issues in assessing this application is, we must consider the intent of the imposition of the legal agreement at the time the original consent was granted, and whether its removal would be acceptable in planning terms now. There's been significant change to both national planning policy and local development plan policy since planning permission relating to the legal agreement was granted. The Scottish Government now discourages occupancy restrictions imposed through planning agreements, and policies has evolved to reflect this. Current policies now provide support for a dwelling house in this location without any requirement for conditions or burdens that would limit the occupancy of the dwelling house should the justification for it be acceptable. So the applicants have submitted a reasoned justification for seeking the discharge of the occupancy restriction on the land known as Lots 5 and 7. They've built and live in a dwelling house on Lot 5. Drumuley is characterised by a low density grouping of houses, and the house built on Lot 5 is integrated well into its surrounding area and the spatial character, and is in accordance with current relevant local plan policies. The part of Lot 7 that's now been decrofted with a condition requiring the land to be used as a site for a dwelling house has planning permission, and it's been decrofted, and on the basis of the planning permission has been granted without any requirement for occupancy restrictions. So therefore we're recommending in these circumstances that the committee supports the recommendation to agree the discharge of the Section 75 legal agreement on the wider site. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. So as Emma said, the recommendation is to agree to discharge. Do we have any questions of clarity for Emma? Nothing online, nothing in the room. Okay, we'll open us up to discussion phase. Does anyone have any points they would like to make? Nope. Nothing online. Nothing in the room. So in that case then, are we happy to agree the officer's recommendation and agree to discharge? We agreed? Okay, that's great. So that is the application for detailed plan permission 2025/0075. Application under section 785 to request discharge of planning obligations associated with plan permission 07414 CP, lots 5 and 7 Dumbilly Bottle Garden is agreed to discharged. Okay, so John has joined us back, and so the next item is the AOCB, item 9, and David, you're going to take us through this.
Thank you, Convener. Just one item from my point of view, just to flag to members' attention. You may well already be aware of this, I'm sure, but just to confirm that SSEN are currently undertaking a consultation in relation to the proposed Korimashi substation, which is a substation that will provide the grid connection for the Loch Erba pump storage hydro scheme that was recently approved by the Scottish Government's Energy Consents Unit. The consultation that is being undertaken at the moment outlines SSEN's site selection process for the substation location, and also a route corridor for proposed underground cabling that will provide a connection between the hydro scheme and the substation. And it's essentially looking at the preferred site selection process. Officers from our team attended a consultation event on that in Lagan on the 28th of May, and I think the consultation runs until the 28th of June. But as it stands at the moment, it looks like the substation itself will be progressed as a planning application, and the timing around that we're expecting is that we are expecting a kind of pre-application process around about spring of next year, followed by a planning application, formal planning application towards the autumn of next year. And that would be something of a scale that it's highly likely that we would be calling that in for determination. As it stands at the moment, SSEN are investigating the potential for whether they can do the underground cabling under their permitted development powers, but that's still to be confirmed, as I understand at the moment. And then the final element would be a tie-in from the substation to the existing Bewley Denny power line, which would be then an application to the Energy Consents Unit. So quite a complicated consenting arrangement for that proposal. It is just at a very, very kind of early stage of site selection in terms of the consultation at the moment, but it does look likely that we will have a plan application to determine on that in the next year or so. So just for awareness on that.
Okay, do we have any questions? We've got Bill followed by Russell.
Have SSEN given an indication that the substation is likely to be within the park boundary?
Sorry, I should have said that. Bill should have made that clear. The 5 locations that are included in the current consultation are within the national park boundary. Yeah. And if I can also send a link around separately after the meeting to the consultation documents as well, so that you can have a look at that.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, since the community liaison event last week there, Lagan Community Council have been in touch with SSEN community liaison officer, and her reply has been wholly inappropriate and not covered any of the points that they asked. Is there anything the park can do to assist the community? And this, obviously, I know it is a planning matter, but the reply, I mean, I've got it here, it's really poor. Thank you.
Certainly happy to have a look at that, and I mean, probably the other point to raise is that there will be a statutory pre-application process as well, which we can engage in. But yeah, we can have a look at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for David on this? I don't see anything online. Nothing in the room. Okay, David, I think that's that. Yeah. Oh, just the one other minor point.
Sorry, yes, it wasn't a sort of formal action point from the last meeting, but just to clarify, there was some inconsistencies with our consultation for the Glenanne mast and the community element of that. So just to clarify that we have corrected our systems for that for the future, and we'll be consulting with the correct community associations rather than community council. So yeah, just to pick up that, it wasn't a formal action point recorded, but we've addressed that.
Okay, so that's the end of the public part of the planning committee meeting. I will now move to consider the minute of the confidential session on 25th of April in a closed session. So for any members of the public, the date of our next meeting will be the 27th of June 2025. And for members of the public watching, this is my final appearance in this committee. And like Doctor Who, I will morph into Russell Jones at the next one. Okay.
Really unfortunate.
Okay. So can we turn off the live stream, please?